Welcome back to the second segment of my last Remnant 100% completion New Game Plus hard mode run. We've actually got quite a bit going on in this segment. We're going to kick things off by progressing the story over to Elysion. We're going to open up quite a bit of the world, pick up a couple of morsels for Mr. Diggs, and just knock out quite a few guild tasks. A couple of quests as well. I'll be commenting quite a bit as we reach all the points of interest. But for now, we're just going to open up the next segment portion, which leads us to the Ivory Peaks and then on to Elysion.
Leave it to me.
It will be an honor.
Impressive, huh?
I'll follow whatever orders you give me.
Am I doing my father proud?
Checking my stats, huh?
I am Emma Honeywell.
Alright, well, the Ivory Peaks has opened up on the map as the next place to traverse. I want to come back to Blackdale. There's a new area that's opened up since passing the story portion. And there's two things I want to get from this area. First, there's a treasure chest that's got 7,200 gold in it, and since money is kind of sparse here at the start of the game, it's certainly worth taking the time to sneak back here and grab this treasure chest. Then we're going to move on to the next area of this of Blackdale. It's the Obsidian Trail. And all the monsters back here are significantly stronger than where your party is at this time. So it's recommended that you don't try to engage them. Instead, we're just going to slip past them and find the treasure chest that has the Remnant, the Simarrionne inside. The Simarrionne is a unique accessory. It's only usable by Rush and Cheryl. And what it is it is a growth boost piece of equipment. What it will do is it grants extra experience to the growth of individual mystic arts. So not the skills, so not invocations or remedies, but the actual art itself, like Spark or Restore. It's going to advance it to Spark 1, 2, and 3, and so forth much faster. So even though I'm doing a combat rush, and it's definitely useful to get higher levels of remedies, we'll say. That's probably my primary use of it. Through use of this piece of growth boost equipment. So I want to take the time to grab that. We're going to be getting remedies here pretty shortly, and it'll just help him be much more of a support character, even though he will be physical focused.
Come on out! Okay, later. Right.
Alright, the Ivory Peaks is pretty straightforward. A couple of treasure chests to grab while we're here, but the one thing of note that I want to point out is this tree here up on the left. If you hadn't gathered 4 pieces of timber from the harvest location in Dilmore, this is a much easier place to obtain it from. And so once again, it's 4 pieces of timber. You need that for upgrading to the Mermaid's Malice. This would be one of the best spots to get it if you're not looking to purchase it from a vendor. Alright, here in Elysion, one of the first things I do is I visit this vendor up here on the right, and I purchase Sagaris for Blocter. Whether or not I'm going to use him in the long term, I am going to use him to get through the catacombs, and so I want to give him a better weapon than what he's actually started with. The Tabar's inline is modified for speed, and what that means is that as you use his combat arts, they'll shift from, say, just plain old smash to nimble smash, and then eventually to swift smash, and all of his arts will shift that way. The Sagaris line is power modified, and so they'll switch to mighty and peerless for each of the arts. And the reason that I get this for Blocter is that later on he gets the Wonder Bangle, and what that does is that also pushes his arts towards the power end of the spectrum. So rather than work towards swift for the first half of the game and then have them transition back to power, I just want to get a jump on that early on. I'm also going to purchase the Spatha for Rush, or at least temporarily for Rush. It's an improvement over the Broadsword, which has been a pretty weak weapon for him. I do intend to use swords for a bit with him to make him more physical focused, and you'll see that as the playthrough goes on. Here we've got the quest, the Secret Letter, or at least we're starting it. By talking to this NPC, it opens up the Southwest Road, and we'll be able to head there after we pass through the story portions here in Elysion. I'm going to enter the catacombs, I'm going to exit right away, and then we're going to explore the world and open up some of the other cities. So I said that I was going to enter and exit the catacombs, but I want to complete one task before I do so. This harvest point is a potential place to harvest shadow metal. I need 2 pieces for a guild task, and I actually do want to complete that early so that I can get access to Perneth, which is one of the earliest game hex users. There is a soldier as well, Chamberlain, and I'll be picking up both of them to help get me through the catacombs while the party is still pretty underdeveloped. I saved it here so that just in case I don't get the 2 pieces of shadow metal, I can reset, and it just turns out that I don't get them, so you get to sit here and watch me waste a bunch of time not getting the shadow metal and having to reset and do it all over again. But after we get that, I'm going to exit because entering the catacombs sets off the next flag for guild tasks, for potential recruits, and so it's worthwhile to just enter and exit, maybe pick up some stronger characters than what you have available when you first enter the catacombs. And I'm also going to cash in some guild tasks. Plus, I did say I'm looking to open up the world, and so I'd like to do a little bit of exploring here before we proceed with the story portion.
Come on out! Okay, later. All right! Awesome! All right! Awesome! All right! Awesome! Come on out! Okay, later. All right! Awesome! Come on out! Awesome! Okay, later. All right! Awesome!
Alright, so we got our 2 pieces of shadow metal, and now we've returned to Athlum to cash in some guild tasks. Specifically the shadow metal task, because that will make Perneth available, and since he is an early game hex user, I do want to add him to the team to help us get through the catacombs without too much of an incident. I'm pointing out here that Nora becomes available by entering and exiting the catacombs. I'll probably hire her at some point, but I have a specific class in mind for her, and I want to make sure that I'm in a position to where I can focus on her development. If I get her too early, she might slip into an unintended class. I'm going to stop here in the town square and do a couple of things. First off, we're going to take care of Athlum's Witch, the first of the Mage Light Girl quest chain. There are 3 locations that are available right now. First in Athlum, then Celapaleis, and then in Elysion. We want to stay on top of those tasks so that when we reach the 4th location, Nagapur, we don't miss our chance there. If you don't complete Nagapur's Witch before the story segments in Nagapur, the quest chain becomes missable, and since we're trying to 100% it, we don't want to do that. Here I'm adding both Neelis and Chamberlain. I'm also going to add Hendrickson. Neelis is a herb soldier that starts with the ability to revive with Vivification Herb, so I want to keep him on the team until somebody else learns that. I've got Chamberlain because he's another Hex user. I'm going to work him into the team just like Perneth to get us through the catacombs. I'm probably not going to keep him for much further than that. For Hendrickson, he satisfies 2 guild tasks. So he's a freelancer, which there's plenty of freelancers to choose from, but you do need one of them for the sort of the 3 realms when that becomes available later on. And the reason I pick him is because he also starts with the Warrior's Broadsword, and that is its own guild task. You have to have one somewhere in your team, either in your inventory or equipped on a character, and so since he starts with that, I can satisfy that guild task, and that is the one that unlocks potions for Rush. So if you're looking to add that to Rush's skill set, you could do that at this point. I'm just making a quick pit stop here in Celapaleis to knock out the 2nd of the Mage Light Girl quests. I'll be returning here once we have a little bit more cash on hand to spend most of our money on some components for future guild tasks. But since it's on my mind right now to stay up on the Mage Light Girl quest, I figured we should swing over here and just knock that one out. Alright, here on the Southwest Road, we're passing through on our way to unlock Balterossette. There's a few tasks we can do while we're here. The first thing we're going to do is there's an item on the ground up ahead, which is the Bandana of Remembrance. It's one of the remembrance items needed to complete the quest for Jorgen, Amnesia. That's available in Balterossette. You need 3 remembrance items to complete the quest. If you have a particular Jorgen you want to use, then you want to make sure that you get the appropriate remembrance items turned into him to get him in the class that you're looking for. This tree has a harvest point on it, and I'm only stopping here temporarily, but it's a place where you can harvest Mystic Fiend Fangs. It's for a future guild task. You need 4 of them. The task itself is just to have 4 Mystic Fiend Fangs, and so this is a rare item that you can get from that location. I'll be coming back off the clock to get the 4 Mystic Fiend Fangs outside of recording. Now this harvest point is a spot where you can get potentially 2 items. The most common item is the iron ore. We do need 3 pieces of iron ore for the death mask, and so I'm going to get those actually pretty easily here. But there's a rare item, the vase fragment. You can harvest here if you're fortunate. I do not get them. We need 2 of them to complete its own guild task, but there's a couple other locations where they can be found a little more easily, and I'll point them out when we cross those locations. Alright, so we made it to Balterossette, and we've got a couple of tasks to do while we are here. The first is we're going to head to the pub and complete the quest, The Secret Letter, which adds the remedy skill set to Rhys's repertoire. I'd like to do that early, just because it's handy to get some restore development in the mandatory fights in the catacombs. If you speak to the bartender here, it will unlock the Great Sand Sea, and I'm looking to do that because I'm going to open up as much of the world as we can at this point. The Great Sand Sea will lead you both to Beolach and to Royosha, and so I'd like to do that fairly early. This year we've just turned in the quest for the Secret Letter. At the top of the stairs here, we're going to interact with Jorgen and Paris. Jorgen is the one who gives you the Amnesia quest. Again, you need to find 3 remembrance items in order to complete that. After just kicking off the quest, we're going to go over to Paris, and we're going to start his quest, which is For Love the Bell Tolls. I'm not looking to complete it at this time. I'm just looking to explore the dungeon, grab the loot that's in there, and specifically, I would like to find the Osteon Morsel for Mr. Diggs. That will increase the Diggs count by 1, and during this unlocking of the world segment, I want to get as many Diggs counts increases as we possibly can.
Come on out! Yes! Okay, later. Come on out!
Alright, so I mentioned in the Southwest Road that there were other locations to find the vase fragment, and sure enough, here's the first one. It's an excavation point, and there's another excavation point in Lava Fender where you can find it. So if you did not want to harvest the rare item in the Southwest Road, you can pick them up by finding the excavation points in these two dungeons. They're not always in the same location though, so it takes a little bit of exploring to find them, but it's a guaranteed find when you do harvest from those excavation points.
Come on out! Yes! Okay, later. Come on out!
So right here is our last task for this dungeon. It is the location of the Osteon Morsel, which, as I mentioned at the start, will increase Mr. Dig's count by 1. Again, it's the last thing we're looking to do, and at this point I'm just going to head over to the teleporter and move on with unlocking more of the world.
Right.
So I have one more quick purchase I need to make before I leave town, and that is to get the Balterossette, which is an accessory sold here at this shop. The Balterossette is a speed accessory, and there's a limited number of characters that will actually ask for speed accessories. Deatheater is the one in particular that will take this, provided he's in balanced focus. I want to get this as early as possible so that he has the opportunity to ask for it. What it does is that it restores AP based upon damage dealt, and so what I'll be able to do with that is in the Nest of Eagles battle, if I get the opportunity to use the Gay Bolg, the damage dealt by it, which will be done battlefield wide, will restore his union's AP so that he can use it repeatedly. Alright, so here in the Great Sand Sea, I'm looking to pass through this area actually twice. I have to exit through the southern exit, and I have to exit through the western exit to unlock two separate locations. This time I'm going to pass through the southern exit, but on the way there I'm going to take a little detour and pick up the map, and then I'm also going to find the Rhis Morsel from Mr. Diggs. And as you can see here, I thought I knew where I was going, but I actually needed to be on the other side of that dune. So I'm going to see here very shortly that I went the wrong way, turn around. I'll grab the map, I'll grab the morsel, and then we'll exit through the southern exit.
Come on out! Awesome! Okay, later.
Alright, so there's a handful of things we can do here in Lava Fender. I'll be making a couple of trips here. There's actually a little mini grind that I'll be doing a little bit later on, right before we reach the Numor Mine segment. But some of the things on our to-do list is at some point we have to take down 5 vultures. Not going to do that anytime soon. These are probably the easiest versions, and I'll probably end up fighting the ones that are in Ave Cliff, just because there's something else I can do by postponing it. But if you're looking to knock that guild task out, you can certainly take down any of these vultures. Again, you need 5 of them, and that's for sort of the 3 realms task. Right off the bat here, I'm going to grab the map for the area, and then I'm going to double back and eventually reach another area where I can get the Stoma Morsel for Mr. Diggs. Right here is a harvest point where you can find talons if you're looking to get 3 of them for the guild task. Otherwise, you can purchase them once we get to Nagapur. A couple other tasks you can do. You'll need an elven core at some point, and you can capture and split evil eyes in this area. It's a rare split, but it is an opportunity to get one of those items. When I return to do a little mini grind, I'll actually be fighting the Deatheater, and that is a rare that also has an opportunity to split it for an elven core, and that's actually where I'm going to get mine. But you do need one of them, and this is a spot where you could accomplish that. Another thing you need is Sky Dragon husks. You need 4 of those, and those are dropped by Wyverns. I'm going to postpone that. For one, Wyverns are going to be a little too challenging for the group at this point in the game. But there's a story, not a story, but a quest fight, the second of Violet's quests, where you have to fight some Wyverns, and so there's a chance of it being dropped there, and since that's a mandatory quest fight, I'm going to wait and see if I get any from that fight before I hunt for them in this area. I mentioned the Stoma Morsel, and that's where we're about to head, but besides that, there's one more thing. There's the rare Prometheus that is needed to unlock the 2nd rank of the Union of the Golden Chalice. We're not in any state to fight that right now, but it is located in Lava Fender. So here you'll see the excavation point is up on the right, just past this treasure chest. That's where the Stoma Morsel is located, but I'm going to bypass it first. I'm going to reach the end of the area and do a little harvesting with Mr. Diggs. The dig spot there is a chance to harvest some stones, which I can sell for money. And in particular, I need the rough Alp stone. If you do find one here, you need one of them for a future guild task. For the Assassin's Dagger in particular. And so if you find one, you want to hold on to it, you can sell the extras. But if you don't get a rough Alp stone from here, there's a better harvest point in Numor Mine.
All right! Awesome! All right! Awesome! Come on out! Awesome! Okay, later. Come on out! Okay, later. All right! Awesome! Come on out! Okay, later. All right! Awesome! Come on out! Okay, later.
Alright, so here in Royosha, I mentioned in the previous video that a lot of the quests require that you speak to an NPC in the pub first before the quest giver may become available in a different area of the town, and that's just the case here, as if you go to speak to Priam, he is not offering a quest until you speak to this NPC in the pub. And so I'm going to do that. I'm going to backtrack here to the pub, speak to the NPC, return to Priam, and then I'll be able to do the quest Into the Abyss. There's no fighting for this. You just have to go back to Lava Fender and speak with another NPC. And it's not a quest you necessarily have to do at this point. But what I want to do is open this or tackle this quest because it opens the doorway that's immediately to the right as you enter Lava Fender. And later on, when I return there to hunt for the Deatheater, which is a rare spawn, you can tell if a rare has spawned by looking through the doorway to see if there's other monsters that have spawned. If there's evil eyes or wyverns over in this newly opened area, you'll know that the rare did not spawn further into the dungeon, so it can save you the time of traversing the whole area by having that doorway open. So there's not really anything to say about the quest itself. You just come down here and hit the teleporter to speak to an NPC. But I have to point out the irony here, which is why I'm hovering over Prometheus, is that of course it's spawned when I'm not down here to actually fight it. But when the time comes and I've actually got a party that is prepared for it, it's not going to spawn, and I'm going to have to revisit this area multiple times in order to get it. And so in the moment when I saw that it was spawned, I just kind of did an eye roll, knowing that later on when I come back here, it's going to take many trips before it shows up.
Come on out! Okay, later.
Alright, so this is round 2 of the Great Sand Sea, where we're going to exit through the western exit to unlock the route to Balak. But I'm stopping here at this harvest point because this is a location where you can get passion blooms, and for its own guild task you need 4 passion blooms, and so you may as well stop here and grab them. There actually is a pretty high chance that you're going to get them from this spot, but again you need 4 of them. However, this same location will give you land insecta carapaces if you do need those, and that's a rare item. We're going to come back and grab those later on. I'm going to end up hiring a soldier that and here I'm pointing out that I actually get them. I get 2 of them on that harvest. But I'm going to be hiring a soldier that you can obtain the materials to upgrade his starting weapon, and that will actually complete a separate guild task. And one of those items, of course, is the land insecta carapace. And so we'll be returning to this harvest point so that we can upgrade that with as little fighting as possible. I'm making one other stop here. There's a treasure chest down in this little sinkhole, but I'm actually not going to open it yet. It contains some money. It contains another Wayfarer's Ward, which we got the first one from the Ivory Peaks. And then lastly, it contains a small Khaziiti-sized sword, the Despair's Edge, and that's something that I could use to give to Oaks if I decide to use him. I'm not committed to using him yet, and there's another Khaziiti that might take it. But if I allow them to take it, there's a good chance that they're going to change their focus to combat. And since I'm trying to get some other accessories in their hands first, more the balance-focused accessories, I want to delay adding that to the inventory so that they're not constantly pestering me for that item. Alright, so exiting the Great Sand Sea through the western exit has unlocked the Veil of the Gods. And there's a couple of things to point out while we're here. We'll actually be coming back a handful of times. But right now you can pick up the Letter of Remembrance, which is another one of the Jorgen items needed for Amnesia. And this spot here is the harvest point, primarily used to get money in the early game. You get the opportunity to get some stones, rough elven stones and rough sylph stones, and they sell for a considerable amount. This is a great place to go to work on Mr. Diggs' skill levels, because it is right near the entrance, and so you can enter this area, spend your digs, return to the world map, and then come right back on in and use this place again to get some cash. I'll be doing a lot of that off the clock, since technically I should not have started with really any money carried over from the previous game. And so I'm showing you here that I'm just basically going to use almost all of my digs in hopes of getting some stones. Again, the higher Mr. Diggs' levels are, the better he becomes at this, and so you can get some chains where you're pulling in the teens, maybe even 20 of these at a crack. A little unlikely, but you're going to get a lot more than just one. I'm going to move through the area, and I'm going to point out a couple of harvest points. I mentioned early on that if you did not get Plante Fluid from the boss fight at Dilmore, that it can be harvested. And right here, this is the harvest point for the Plante Fluid. I don't get it here, but I'm just stopping to point out that this is the location for it. Alright, on our way out here at Vale of the Gods, I'm just going to point out that there's crabs everywhere, and you do need to take down 7 crabs for a guild task. That's something I'm going to postpone because I don't want to do really any excessive fighting early in the game, but it will unlock lotions for rush, and so if that fits your rush build, you certainly could take out the 7 crabs early. Keep in mind that the fights are a mixture of crabs and giant crabs, and it's only the regular crabs that satisfy the count towards the 7, so you may actually need to take down more enemies than what your chain count indicates. Here I'm returning to Athlum. I'm going to stop in the town square because at this point I remember that I did not hire Harala, and I need him for the Rune Maiden guild task later on. I'm going to sell some of the extra components that I have, particularly some of these stones that we harvested, but I'm also going to make a purchase here. I need 5 large feathers that I can buy here at Rod's Component Shop. The 5 large feathers are for the Mermaid's Malice. It's going to cost roughly 2,000 gold for that purchase, but you may as well get them now if you have the extra cash. Alright, speaking of extra cash, since we do have some, we're going to make a painful purchase here in Celapaleis. We actually need to buy 4 pieces of quality timber and 4 pieces of superior fur. This is going to cost us a little over 11,000 gold, but you need these components to craft the ram skull for its own guild task. And just so that I don't become too attached to the amount of money I have, I figured I may as well return here and just get these components now. While we're here, we're going to stop by the guild, and we're going to speak to an NPC next to the guild master to unlock the first path. We're going to venture into the first path and get ourselves a couple of things. We're going to get the amoeba rawhides, which is a drop or a split from both amoebas and giant amoebas. We need 6 amoeba rawhides for the Mermaid's Malice. We're also going to take down 6 nussknackers, which will unlock the belt formation, which is especially useful formation for some of our future grinding. So the video kind of skips at this point because I ran out of time while I was recording, and then I had to start again. But I stopped here on Faye, which is a generic unit that I would consider a talented generic, in that she has 2 starting skills, and most generics have just 1 or only combat arts. In this case, she has herbs and lotions, and she dual wields axes. So if you're not opposed to using generics, and I'm certainly not, I would recommend adding Faye. I'll probably add her to the team, but similar to Nora, I have a particular class in mind for her, and by adding her too soon, there's a chance that she may not reach the class that I have in mind. Okay, so here in the first path, again, we have the 2 tasks to complete. One is to take down 6 Nussknackers. You see I bypassed the very first one to hit the second one in the area because this one actually has 6 Nussknackers in the fight, whereas the first one does not. So you, assuming that they don't run away, although there is a chance that one of them might run away, you can satisfy defeating all 6 of them here in a single fight. After this, I'm going to hunt down a couple of amoebas, looking to get 6 amoeba rawhides, which I said were both a drop and a split, and that's for the mermaid's malice.
Steady there!
Smash him from the side! Sweet!
This is exactly what I needed.
I suppose you can't win them all.
Perhaps next time.
Let's do this! Come on! Finish them off!
How'd you like that?
Sweet!
Got it! I was cheated.
Let's do this! Come on! Finish them! Come on!
I must grow
Got it.
stronger.
I was cheated.
Alright, quick comment here. You see we got the amoeba rawhides, but with the Nussknacker fight we also got 3 horns, and you do need 3 horns for its own guild task, and so if you happen to get it from the drop from the Nussknackers, you can cross that off your list. Otherwise, horns are available for purchase in Nagapur, so you don't necessarily have to farm them from any enemies. So I'm going to make a quick return trip here to Celapaleis for one more task. I would like to complete the first of Violet's quests, which is the Dreaming Rose. May as well do this now. It's actually fairly simple. The second quest, however, is pretty challenging, so we'll have to postpone that until our party has been developed. But the only thing worth noting here for the Dreaming Rose quest is that you do have to fight some vile lizards, and if you have not gotten the rare split of the inverted vile lizard scale, there's a chance that you can capture them in this fight and split them for that. So again, if you haven't harvested them through fighting in Robalia, here's another chance at it.
shall face you in combat. Be careful.
What's this?
Smash him from the side. You okay?
Tis just a wisp of a thing.
We're counting on you. Sweet! Yeah!
I know I'm good.
This is exactly what I needed. Perhaps next time.
Alright, so we have returned to the catacombs and now we're ready to proceed with the story portion here. I'll be popping in and making comments at various points in this segment. This first part here is a mandatory fight against a couple of Albic Khazitis. I would recommend not chaining the two of them together unless you've actually done some extra fighting on your own to develop your party. I would not recommend chaining anything together in this area, especially if you're at a very low BR. But here I always fight the one on the right first, assuming they haven't moved around in the room too much. The one on the right is a battle against a single enemy union, whereas the other one is against two enemy unions, and the only reason I do that is from speedrunning. You get the autosave after fighting the first fight, and just in case things go south on the stronger of the two fights, at least it's saved for you.
Keep them off balance and crush them!
Come on, let's kick some A.
Hot enough? What's this?
Tis just a wisp of a thing.
These opponents are not to be underestimated.
Here we go!
Piece of cake! Sweet!
Alright, I'm going to progress through the dungeon and point out a couple of things along the way, and then I'll be saving it and then completing a couple of tasks off camera, since they're more of the tedious fights where you have to capture and split some enemies for components. First off, here, this treasure chest, you don't want to pass up. This has got recipe 21 in it, and that is useful for crafting the commander's mace, which is on the path to creating the ram skull. And so that's a weapon recipe that I don't want to sell. I want to make sure that I obtain that and keep that highlighted in my inventory. The Grand Beetle that was near the chest is something that I'll have to come back and fight repeatedly to capture and split. What I'm looking to get is a single Grand Beetle fluid, and again, I have to split the Grand Beetle in order to get that, and that's for a much later guild task in the Ring of the Labyrinth. Right here we have the Omos Morsel sitting here next to this pest, so you certainly want to grab that before you progress any further in the dungeon. And at this point I want to hold on to all of my digs until I get to the end. There's an opportunity to harvest some more stones right before the very final part of the dungeon. So hopefully you've gotten your shadow metal. If you have not, there is a dig point in this room to the left of where Rush is standing, sort of against the back wall there. But it's at this point that I'm going to save it, because I also have to fight these Nymphalidaes, and I have to capture and split them, and that's a very challenging fight. I'm looking to get 2 pieces of winged insecta meat, and thankfully I have those hex users with me. That does help the fight, or help with the fight, but they do a move called Slap, which not only hits a target union, but can hit outlying unions as well. And so this fight took me a couple of tries to capture and then to split them. But you see, when we come back, not only do I have the Grand Beetle fluid, but I have my 2 pieces of winged insecta meat. And after that, we're just going to progress forward. We'll grab the map, and then we'll reach an area where the infamous landworms in the mist. So quite a few people ask if you can get through this area without having to fight these pests, and it is possible. Typically you want to have both of these pests around the corner, and then what you do is you tag them like I have in Time Shift, and then you climb right up the ladder. And what will happen is they will try to catch Rush, but since Rush is on higher ground, they're going to leave the map, walk all the way back around to the room that has this sealed off door, and then they'll just wait on the other side of the door. During that, once they get there, you can turn around, climb down the ladder, and then pull Time Shift to lose their aggro, and then just proceed through the mist before they return. But you'll see here is that something kind of glitched out with these. The one pest keeps walking back and forth, won't let me go down the ladder. Eventually it leaves the area, does travel all the way around, but the second one is still angry, but it's frozen there, and I've seen that happen on the remastered version where things just kind of freeze up on you. So that kind of works in my favor. Eventually, once the mobile pest actually makes its way all the way around, I'll go down the ladder and be able to get through without having to fight either one of these. So this is part 2 of the bugs in the mist area, and there's a way to get around these as well. Typically what I'll do is I'll just set foot into the mist, pull the battle start trigger to switch them to angry, and let them chase me clear out of the mist all the way back to the entrance to the area. Once they're there, you can sprint around them, reach the mist before they've even turned around, and then pull your time shift to lose the aggro and proceed through the mist without any issues. But this time around, I was able to walk right up next to them and then time shift to slip past them, and you'll see that I made it through the mist without getting touched by either one of them.
Impressive, huh?
Alright, so this is the doorway leading to the final area of the dungeon, and it's certainly a spot worth saving at. On the other side of the door, there's some random Khazidis that you don't have to fight, but just past them, there are 4 of them that guard a door. And it's a misconception that you have to fight all 4 of them at once. Take them down one at a time. They can be very challenging, downright overwhelming if you try to link them together, and so I always fight them one at a time. This is also a good opportunity if you haven't yet been working on it to develop Rhis remedies. Just take a couple extra turns, take the damage if the battle is under control, and work on your restore, because the next story segment is through Numor Mine, and it's the Russian and Emma date. And during the boss fight of that area, you want to have decent healing abilities while Emma solos the boss. After we get through these 4 fights, you'll see there is a dig spot on the floor off to the right. You get a chance to harvest some stones from that area, and I'll certainly be taking advantage of that. And then after that, we'll be wrapping up this story segment.
We're depending on you.
I know I'm good.
Let's do this!
Get the upper hand!
Come on, let's kick some A!
Ah, what are you doing? Crush their flank!
Show those jerks! Thought they'd be made of sturdy stuff.
Let's do this! The winner's the one who strikes first, yeah? Come on, let's kick some A!
Crush their flank!
Piece of cake!
I must grow stronger.
Let's do this! Come on, let's kick some A!
Like that!
How's that?
Tis just a wisp of a thing.
These opponents are not to be underestimated.
We're counting on you!
You
wanna play? Piece of cake! Sweet! Come on out! Okay, later. All right! Awesome! All right! Awesome! Yes! All right! Awesome!
Alright, so we've returned to Elysion, and the next segment is Numor Mine with Emma, but I'm not quite ready to get through that. Actually, I'm going to take a step back to the map of the city so that you can see here enough battles have passed to where David is actually going to ask for that Balterossette. And then I'm going to return and talk to Emma to unlock Numor Mine, or at least to get into Numor Mine. All I want to do right off the bat is head down the lift and grab the sword for rush, and then what I'm looking to do is I'm going to do a mini grind here with Emma, so that when we get to the boss fight of the area, we don't really have a whole lot of issues. It's also useful to develop some of my other characters, so it's not entirely Emma focused. But in order to do that, I need someone who is in a class that has the medic skill or the medic trait, however you want to call it. A class such as Sorcerer, Healer, Bishop, Scholar, Scout, and Hunter all have that, and if the Union leader has or is in the class that has that skill or trait, it will give you revive commands basically every turn, so that that Union in particular can stand by and then reassess to healing as necessary. And it's pretty much a critical setup to make sure that at least one of your unions stays out of engaging the enemy. The other one, which will be led by Emma, is the one that will actually be doing the grinding. So I have to find a character that has that skill or trait. And right now, really my only option, unless I've done some extra fighting and developed somebody to reach one of those classes, is going to be Vega. And Vega is available in Athlum after you complete the guild task of taking down 12 Quion. Here we have Quyen that are actually fairly weak. Well, they would be weak against a full party of 9, but it's just Rush and Emma. And so I'm going to save it, and I'm going to see if I can take down this first one. This first enemy icon has 3 Quyen in it in a single union. You'll see that this doesn't work out for me. And so what's going to happen is off the clock, I'm going to fight these 3, return to Elysion, return to Numor Mine, fight him again. I'll do that 4 times, obviously, until I defeat all 12 of the Quyen, and then I can return to Athlum, hire Vega, and then I will demonstrate the mini grind that I'm referring to.
How you like that? Wait, I still gotta...
Alright, so we took down our 12 Quyen, returned to Athlum, where we can hire Vega after we turn this guild task in, and that's exactly what's going on here. And then you'll see what I'm going to do is build a union of 5 in the belt formation. I had mentioned earlier when we obtained that by fighting the Nussknackers that it's a very useful formation, and what it is it boosts your speed so much so that the members of that union will almost always act before the enemy does, and that's pretty much necessary so that you're actually able to deal damage and take down some of the more challenging enemies in the game, provided they don't have some kind of area of effect that will target outside of a single union. You can pretty much fight just about anything. And so here I'm going to set up belts. I'm going to lead it with Emma because I do want to develop her Devil's Due for the Namalnirum fight later on. Everybody else is just kind of tagging along to get some bonus growth. And then I'm going to set up a revive union that's going to stand by every turn to heal or revive as necessary. And I mentioned earlier that it has to be led by someone with that medic skill or trait. And so it's going to be Vega who's leading that union. Along with Vega is going to be Nihilus. I picked him up earlier because he can revive. You could use anyone who can revive. But I also want to train up another herbs unit so that Nihilus isn't the only one who can revive. And so I threw David in there so he can get some herbs experience as well. Once he learns Vivification herb, I can put Nihilus on the bench and develop someone who's a little sturdier than just a soldier. Now you'll see here I'm turning off Restore for Vega because I want David to be the one who heals, and so that's basically his only option. I will leave Refresh on for Vega. And the reason for that is any unit that doesn't start with Refresh or Rejuvenate at level 2 will have to get one of those skills to level 2 before they will be able to learn Revitalize, which I'm sure you know is the union-wide healing art. You can use Restore repeatedly till it's Restore 5, but at least one of the 2 arts that are on the same tier will have to be level 2 before you can unlock the next tier, and that goes for any mystic arts. And so for instance, invocations, you'll see you learn Wind Shear and Double Time, both at the same rank. One of those 2 needs to become level 2 before you will be given the opportunity to learn Caustic Blast, which is the next one. So as you're trying to grind up some of the later skills, it's a common complaint, people who are looking for Cachexia for the Hex Tree, they're not getting it. Well, it's because they didn't level up Dispirit to level 2 in order to unlock Bewitch. So just explaining that here, that I'm looking to get some refresh experience on Vega, so that later on, if I choose to keep her, I can eventually learn Revitalize without being hindered. Okay, so as you can see, we're here in Lava Fender, and this is where I'm looking to do that mini grind. What I would like to fight is a Treant called the Deatheater. You'll see here that I'm starting off by walking through that open door that we unlocked earlier by doing Priam's quest. Since there is no Evil Eye or Wyvern back there, I can proceed through the dungeon because there's a rare that has spawned somewhere. There's a chance that it could be the Dragon Go, and obviously that's not something that we're equipped to deal with. But if I don't see at least Evil Eyes or Wyverns there, then I'm going to run through the dungeon and hopefully find the enemy I'm looking for. Now, before Deatheater is going to spawn, you have to take out a leapfrog type enemy called Vodianoi, and you'll see it's up here, just past the landworms. It is there. It is a little frog. It can be kind of challenging because of its death dive skill that actually targets a union, but has some area of effect damage to where if your recovery union is a little too weak, they might get caught in that. But here, once you take it out, it is a one-time rare, and then Deatheater will become available after that, which can be repeatedly spawned. But this is a one-and-done rare, and so you'll see here that we get to still use the same technique of standing by with a recovery union to revive after our faster union, our growth union, if you will, the one we're trying to develop, acts due to being in that belt formation.
Stand your ground!
We're depending on
Check this out!
What are you doing?
Tough guy.
I must grow stronger.
Sweet!
I feel stronger than before!
I hope I've grown stronger than before.
I am Emma Honeywell.
Impressive, huh?
Checking my stats, huh?
Alright, so we took out the one-time rare, and now we're returning to the world map. You see that Emma asked for the Spatha, and it is stronger than her starting sword, so I'm going to let her have that. We're going to return to Athlum to sell the captured monster and replenish our herb components. As you do any kind of grind, you want to make sure that you're well stocked on healing items so that you don't get stuck unable to revive when you need to. That standby revive union certainly is not equipped to actually deal damage, and so keep an eye on what you've got for consumables. We're going to go back to Lava Fender and spawn the Deatheater, and then it's going to be the same strategy that we use against the Vodianoi, where you stand by with one union. But the Deatheater is a great one to use because it does not have an area effect attack that reaches beyond a single union. It likes to poison. It has natural gas, so it has a good chance to poison the target enemy. But it also uses a defense down skill that can be useful for getting some uses of rejuvenate, and so once Vega learns that, that's something she can practice. And once again, you have to get refresh or rejuvenate to level 2 in order to unlock revitalize later on. So certainly a handy enemy to take down. There's a chance of capturing it, and it sells for a decent amount of money as well. Furthermore, I'd mentioned early on that if you did not get the Treant fragment all the way back in the Dilmore boss fight, here's another opportunity to do so. It's not a required fight, so it's not like you have to use this in order to get the Treant fragment, but it's a possibility. So turns out that's actually what happens for me. I get the Treant fragment from Deatheater, which here it is. This is where it spawns. It's also another enemy that you can capture and split. I'd mentioned before for Evil Eyes. That you can get in Elven Core, and that's exactly what happens here too during one of my fights is I get one of those. So knock that off of the guild task list. After this demonstration though, everything else will be done off camera. I'll be fighting this quite a few times to get Emma's Devils due at least to level 5, and I'll be doing quite a bit of harvesting in the Vale of the Gods because money is definitely an issue, and when we reach the next grind spot, which will be very much a drain on our funds, I want to make sure that I've got plenty on hand to restore consumables, and I'll be demonstrating that once we get past the Numor mine segment.
I'll show you the strength of Athlum.
Check this out!
Damn it!
answer now?
I owe you one.
Check this out!
I must grow stronger.
I know I'm good.
I feel stronger than before!
I hope I've grown stronger than before.
Right.